How are you, Dave Prabhu, with a very, what could one say? Enthusiastic, heartfelt and sincere appreciation and welcome. Thank you so much to all of you also, because you're also very sincere and warm-hearted devotees of Krishna. Well, it is a fact that 40 years ago, tomorrow actually, I moved into the temple at 7 Berry Place, London, as a guest, and I still regard myself as a guest. I'm just here by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and that really is true. And I hope I can remain conscious of that eternally. As Haridev Prabhu was saying, I came from a materially comfortable background. You know, my family was not like Ambarish Prabhu's family, the Ford family, not on that level. But still materially comfortable. But I can say to you that despite the comfort and the facilities that we were brought up with, and good education and so many opportunities, I can tell you quite frankly, I was really not happy. Money cannot buy you love. It cannot buy you happiness. It's true. It really is true. And at least to some degree, fairly substantial degree, I had experienced that. I must say, I tried my best to enjoy. I gave it a good shot. Oh, I really, heart and soul, I tried to enjoy in this material world, thinking that it was the best thing, and it was the real thing, and the only thing, actually. And it was just the thing to do. So I really tried enthusiastically. I will not go into the details of that, but just take it from me. Been there, done that, just about everything. But it really didn't work. Seriously, I'm telling you this, my experience, in all sincerity. This is not just some sales talk or something like that. I really tried hard, and I really was not able to become happy in material existence. And of course, the reason for that, the root cause, is that no one can really be happy in material existence. That is the thing. There's some people who think you can be happy. Srila Prabhupada talks about 3 categories of people. 2 categories are happy. 1 category is not happy. The 3 categories are the staunch non-devotees, the aspiring devotees who are trying to become Krishna conscious, and then the pure devotees. So Srila Prabhupada says, of those 3 categories, 2 are happy and 1 is unhappy. Now, of course, The pure devotees, they're very happy. They're above and beyond the trials and tribulations of material existence. And they're just relishing transcendental nectar due to being situated in their loving relationships with Lord Krishna. So they're happy that, if we were to ask which of the three, who is happy, specify who is not happy, I think all of us sitting here would immediately say, the pure devotees, they're happy. So then what is the other category who are happy? Who do you think? The staunch non-devotees or the aspiring devotees? Someone said the aspiring devotees are happy. Do you agree with that?
No.
What do you think, ladies? Who thinks the aspiring devotees are happy? Put your hands up. Who is hedging their bets? Well, Raghava Pandit Prabhu, who's very knowledgeable devotee, very well-read and thoughtful devotee, he said that the non-devotees are happy. What do you think of that, ladies? Do you agree, or you just sort of will wait and see? Well, actually, he's right. The staunch non-devotees are happy, the pure devotees are happy, and Srila Prabhupada says the aspiring devotees are not happy. He's speaking in a certain type of way. The staunch non-devotees, Prabhupada says they're happy, but it's in a certain sense. They think they're happy. They think they're doing the right things which will make them happy, and it's just their whole program is geared towards happiness. They think, and the fact that there are a few hiccups here and there, and some problems, and sometimes things don't work out, and sometimes they really don't work out. That's just, you've got to take the rough with the smooth. They think like that. But in their minds, they're thinking, our program is happiness, we're happy. Just like Prabhupada, when Srila Prabhupada was in hospital, when he was in America just for a year or less than 2, I think, Srila Prabhupada had a mild stroke or mild heart attack, and he was hospitalized, and he was in a ward with a number of other people, and in the next bed was some man who had been in a serious car accident, some big smash, and his body was smashed, and his whole body practically was in plaster, and legs up and arms up, in traction or whatever they call it. So obviously it's a very extreme situation materially. And Prabhupada was there. And then the visiting hour came, and the relatives of that smashed man came in. And the first thing they said, you can guess, just spontaneous reaction without a thought. How are you? What an insult. What insensitivity. It's just inconceivable. How dare you ask a person in such a condition something like that? It's terrible. But the point is, it's, we're talking about automation. They're automatons. You press the button, how are you? I have the experience here in South Africa, because it's very common also here in South Africa, that spontaneous question, and then expecting the same question back. And then there's the spontaneous answer, which of course is, I'm fine. Doesn't matter how you are, but you're fine. I've had the experience on a number of occasions. People ask me how I am and I don't say anything, and they say I'm fine. Because it's 3 seconds after you ask, how are you? Then within that 3 seconds, they must say they're fine and ask you how you are. And then after the 3 seconds, you must say you're fine. So you just say you're fine after 3 seconds. Countdown. 1, 2, 3, I'm fine. So there was Srila Prabhupada in the hospital ward. And there's this man in this most terrible condition. And his relatives come in, and they have the nerve to ask him, how are you? And because he's also an automaton to some degree, automatic pilot, he said, I'm fine. So in that sense, Srila Prabhupada's talking, in that sense, that the staunch non-devotees are happy. If someone in such a condition is fine, then what can you say? Then they're all fine. And they're even better than fine. They're just, life is a bowl of cherries. So in that sense, Srila Prabhupada says, of course the pure devotees, they're happy. And then in that sense, Prabhupada says, the staunch non-devotees who are just resolute in their materialistic activity, they're happy. They're not happy, but it's a mental thing. Even Jiva Goswami gives very interesting analysis. Is it? I think it's Paramatma Sandarbha. He gives interesting analysis that the non-devotees, they are thinking about how we will enjoy. Oh, we're really going to enjoy. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. So they're sort of enjoying already in their minds, thinking about how they're going to do those enjoyable things, which they haven't done yet, but they're enjoying the thought. And then sometimes they switch to think of what they did before. Oh, I had such a good time before. I did this, I did that, I enjoyed. Maya Devi, the presiding deity of the material energy, she is extremely powerful, clever, and just very, very, very extraordinary personality. And one of the things she does, and she does it a lot, is that in regards to what happened in the past, she makes us, she influences us to forget the difficulties that were there and just remember whatever positive things were there. This is the expertise of Maya Devi. So you struggled, you had a hard time, but you forget about the different difficulties and you just remember there was some enjoyment at some point in that process. This is Maya Devi. So like this, Jiva Goswami says, the non-devotees, if they're not thinking about how I'm going to enjoy, it is going to be so good, then they're thinking about how they enjoyed before. And like we said, the struggles and the difficulties they've forgotten, and there's just the few high points that may have been there. And they're remembering those. And in this way they're thinking life is good. See what I'm going to do in the future, it's going to be so good. See what I did in the past, it was good. And Jiva Goswami says, in this way, they lose contact with the present. They lose contact with the present, and they're not able to, because they lose contact with the present, they're not able to act effectively for their real happiness in the present. Because the present for them is not really a time when you do things so much. It's more just a time when you think of what you're going to do and remember what you did. At least in certain respects, certainly things are like that, Jiva Goswami explains. So, yes, therefore I can confirm that even though I was brought up materially somewhat more comfortable than the average person, nothing that extraordinary really, but perhaps more than many, but really I was not happy. My gosh. It was tragic actually. It was, I would say, I was a living tragedy, a living calamity, crisis, a life that was not worth living, actually, a wasted life. Such a wasted life. And then on April the 14th, or around the 14th, plus or minus the 14th of April 1972, I was in the Auckland University one day, and Srila Prabhupada came, and I saw Srila Prabhupada and heard him leading kirtan, and then heard him speak. And it's a fact that it touched my heart, even though I didn't really understand at the point that it was, at that time, that it was touching my heart, but it really did. And my life started transforming. And you know, one of the main transformations, the university there in Auckland is right by the center of the city. It's about 200 meters from the main street. And to return home from the university, I had to walk down the main street and take a bus from down the bottom of the main street. So every day I'd walk up and down the main street, and busy street, many people running this way and that, shopping and on errands and working. And after I saw Srila Prabhupada and heard Srila Prabhupada, I didn't know how it happened. I couldn't understand it at the time. But what happened was, I saw very vividly that they were not happy, those people running around the main street in the center of the big city. And I was thinking, look at them. You know, they're giving up the best hours of the day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, to just run around like this, doing something they don't enjoy, just to get money. Whereas they could be having a good time. At the time, I didn't understand what having a good time meant. I thought that they could retire like me. Even though I was studying at university, I was effectively retired. And a few months later, I actually retired at the age of 21. And I thought, a good time means to hang out on the beach and things like that. So but there was definitely a perception, clear perception, strong perception, that they're not happy, they're wasting their lives. And I didn't understand what the positive alternative was. And I didn't understand all the details of how what they were doing was wrong. But then I went to England, and I arrived there sort of middle of December or so, 1972. And I went and visited the temple. And I was visiting on a daily basis for a little while. And I met the temple president, who was a distant cousin of mine, Dhananjaya Prabhu. Very, very wonderful devotee. And still very, very active devotee. So I met him, and we figured out that we were related. And then I thought, it was meant to happen. I was into things like that. It was meant to happen. And he asked me to stay as a guest, and I said, okay. So next morning, it was a Sunday, January the 7th, 1973, I arrived on the doorstep there, number 7 Berry Place, the Radha Krishna Temple, and I moved in. And I can tell you, for the first few days, like maybe a week or maybe a bit less, 4 or 5 days I think, it was really tough. It was tough, adjusting to the way of life. First morning, they had a sort of a guest room, and so I was in the guest room, and there were a couple of other devotees, and we took rest around 10, and they said, okay, we get up at 4. And I didn't really think what that meant. I just said, okay. Spontaneous reaction. Okay. And then at 4, the lights went on, and then they were shaking me. And I thought, what? You're not serious. Somehow I got up and attended the morning program, and it was really difficult. In those days, in Berry Place, we had no clothes of our own. I've explained this before, I think. It was all communal. Everything was communal. Every single thing, down to underwear. Everything was communal. There was a big box, like a tea box, if you know what I mean. Tea. Watch out for tea. Herbal tea. Yeah, these big tea, there was a big tea box filled with clothes, and in the morning everyone would just take a bath and just stick their hands in the clothes box, close their eyes, and see what they pulled out. And I remember the first morning I went up to take a bath, got into the shower, there's a whole queue. There's a whole queue, and they're saying, come on, hurry up. And there's just one shower for like 40 people. And so, okay, now I'm in the shower, first time, okay, where's the taps? Okay, there's the, oops, that's the cold tap. Where's the hot tap? Oh, where's the hot tap? There was no hot tap. It did not exist. I asked a devotee afterwards, where's the hot tap? He said, it went back to Godhead. And if you want it, you have to go there too. So cold showers, and this is now January the 8th in London. It's cold. It was like 0 degrees and the water was bitterly cold, bitterly cold. So that's how we lived. But it was a happy life. It was a happy life because of the association of the devotees. Yeah. The association of devotees is such an amazing thing. So if we want to spend our life, our whole life, in Krishna consciousness, in devotional service, one of the very first things is we must stay in the association of devotees. And when we're in the association of devotees, we must really try to interact and relate in the right ways. You may have heard Govinda Maharaj, Bhakti Bringer Govinda Maharaj, explaining one experience he had with Srila Prabhupada and Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, who was one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers and one of the few who Prabhupada had a sort of a warmer relationship, you could say, something like that. A little bit deeper relationship with. So Govinda Maharaj explains he was in Prabhupada's room 1977, just days before Prabhupada left this world. And Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj came in and sat on Prabhupada's bed. Prabhupada was completely incapacitated physically, just lying in bed on his back. And Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj came and sat at the end of the bed, looking at Srila Prabhupada, whose head was at the other end. And the devotees, Prabhupada's disciples, are there. They'd been having kirtan for Srila Prabhupada. And then Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, he started joking with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, who's in this, materially very, very incapacitated condition. And all the devotees who are around, all the disciples around Prabhupada's bed, everyone's very solemn and serious. But now here's Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj jumps on the bed and starts joking with Prabhupada. Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj was something of a joker. Actually, Govinda Maharaj told me that it was either him or Raghunath Maharaj spent some days with Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. They'd never met him before, they didn't know him or who he was or anything, but he was just nice to them. But he didn't speak English to them. He would just gesture, like go this way, do this, and, in some way indicate by gesture different things. So after a few days, I think Govinda Maharaj said to Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj in a very deliberate and extremely clear to over-clear way, said to him in English, Maharaj, do you speak English? And Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj then replied in like an Oxford English accent, said, actually, I think I speak English rather well. because he'd been educated in English medium and he was completely fluent, although he didn't speak much. So anyway, there's Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj sitting on the end of Prabhupada's bed. All the disciples are there. It's all serious. Hare Krishna, you know, like that. It's all very nice, but very solemn. And now here's this person joking and laughing, and then Prabhupada suddenly Prabhupada just started laughing and responding and getting into it. And, you know, such a change in the atmosphere. And then after a minute or two or whatever of this back and forth and joking and laughing, Prabhupada turned to his disciples. You know, he's lying on his bed, they're sitting around the bed, turned to them and pointed and said, Tandira Charana Sevi, Bhakta Sanivas, Janame Janame Hoi, E Abhilas, which means, it's a verse from the full version of Hari Hare Nama Krishna, if you know that song, by Narottam Das Thakur. It means, my only desire is to live in the association of devotees and serve their lotus feet, birth after birth. Janame, janame, birth after birth. A abhilas, it's my only desire. And when Prabhupada did that, you know, he'd been smiling and responding in the same way with Krishnadas Babaji. But when Prabhupada turned to the disciples and said that, his mood became very serious. It wasn't like, Tandara, you know, in that sort of mood. It was Tandara Charana Sevi. Very serious. And then he turned back to Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, and they carried on, laughing and joking in Bengali, back and forth, and again for a couple of minutes, and it was jolly, just jolly mood. And then suddenly Prabhupada just turned to the disciples and just pointed at them and said, and again serious, Tandira Charana Sevi, Bhakta Sanevas, Janame Janame Hoi, E Abhilas. Same verse. My only desire is to live in the company of devotees and serve their lotus feet, birth after birth. So then Prabhupada turned back to Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, and they continued again, joking, laughing, gesturing, and, you know, waving their arms around a bit and so on, for another minute, 2 minutes or whatever. And then for a third time, suddenly Prabhupada stopped and pointed to the disciples, Tandira Charana Sevi, Bhakta Sanivas, Janame Janame Hoi, E Abhilas. Same verse. So Govinda Maharaj tells the story. He was personally present, and it made a very deep, deep impact on his heart, and it should make a deep impact on our hearts. If it does, that's good for us. So the idea here is how to spend a lifetime in Krishna consciousness. And this is really one of the essential elements. Stay in the company of devotees as much as possible, always if possible. You know, of course, I know many of you have to work and with non-devotees every day for some hours. Some of you have to study non-devotee subjects with non-devotees, etc. But really, as much as possible, the essence of our lives should be that part of our lives which goes on in Krishna consciousness and in the company of devotees. I remember, back in those days, this point was emphasized so strongly. You must keep in the association of devotees, to the point that, if not every time, but most times, at least whenever practical, even if one of us living there in the temple in Sevenbury Place, London, whenever any one of us had to go to the shops to buy something for the deities or whatever, buy some cleaning supplies for cleaning the temple, some bhoga to be cooked and offered to the deities, then generally another devotee would come with us. This point was really emphasized very strongly. And one of our main activities every day, at least 6 days a week, we would go out distributing Srila Prabhupada's books in that central area, because the temple was right. It was a less than 1 round's walk, if you get the idea, from the main street, Oxford Street, which is, arguably the busiest shopping street in the world. It's a lot busier than Fifth Avenue and so many other streets I've seen. And it's just the heart of this big city, London. So yeah, less than 1 round's walk, very close, very close. We would go out and distribute books every day. It's a big downtown area. You can have like 10 devotees, 15 devotees, more, distributing books at different points around this big central area. But it was like a rule that you go out and distribute books, good, that's good, but you must be able to see another devotee. If not like side by side on the street, but at least you must be able to see maybe 20 or 30 meters away, there's another devotee. So this is a very important part of Krishna consciousness. We mentioned, Prabhupada quoted that verse, Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakta Sarevas. He quoted that 3 times to the devotees. He was relishing the association of Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj so much, and he just made the point to the devotees so strongly. So that point is made in that verse from Narottam Das Thakur. Then that same point, basically the same point, is made also by Lord Chaitanya himself. In the 4th verse of ISKCON. Who can tell us what is the 4th verse of ISKCON? I didn't catch that. How about Na? Please. Loud. I'm hard of hearing. Na Danam, Na Janam, Na Sundarim, Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmanishvare, Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoitiki Twai. In principle, it's the same point, you could say. Lord Chaitanya is asking, or maybe someone is asking Lord Chaitanya, what do you want in life? What are you looking for? What do you want to get out of life? And Lord Chaitanya is answering, Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. I don't want wealth. I don't want followers. I don't want a beautiful wife or very handsome, capable husband. I don't want those things. So what do I want is Mama Janmani Janmanishvara, birth after birth, lifetime after lifetime, is just your causeless devotional service, Krishna. Just pure devotional service. That's all I want. So that's the life of Krishna consciousness. Engaged in devotional service, in the association of devotees, not just on our own. Krishna is never alone. Prabhupada made that point on a number of occasions when someone showed him some nice painting of Krishna. Krishna looks nice, but Krishna is on his own. Prabhupada did not appreciate and essentially said that such photos were not bona fide, not acceptable when Krishna is portrayed on his own, because Krishna is never alone. Krishna is always in the company of his devotees. So Prabhupada made the point, at least some cow should be there. At least a cow. But preferably some gopis, some cowherd boys, some other devotees like that, a group of devotees. Because Krishna is never alone. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's a nice, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 9th canto is the story of Maharaj Ambarish being offended by Durvasa Muni. And in that description, Durvasa Muni, offending the great devotee Maharaj Ambarish, he incurs the wrath, the anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Lord Sudarshan Chakra comes to destroy him. And Durvasa Muni has to run and try to find some shelter, some protection. So he approaches different demigods and powerful personalities, even Lord Brahma and then Lord Shiva. Please protect me from this chakra. And they all say, we can't. It is the weapon of the Lord. It's his weapon. We cannot stop it. If you want it stopped, you have to approach him because it's his weapon. So of course it is something of a long story, but Durvasa Muni, he is able to enter Vaikuntha and approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he appeals to him that you are very merciful. You are so kind to the fallen, the downtrodden, the suffering, and the bewildered. You're very merciful, and I am in that condition. So you please be merciful to me. there's interesting description given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He sort of alludes to it or mentions it, is that the Lord, when Devasa Muni is appealing to him like that you're so merciful to the suffering, and I'm suffering. You have a very merciful heart, a very kind heart. So please, with your kind heart, be merciful to me, because I need your mercy. So according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Lord responds by saying to the effect that yes, you're right. I have a very kind heart. I have a very kind heart. And my kind heart really feels for the suffering people. But the Lord says, however, there is one problem. The problem is, I have given my heart to my devotees. So I don't have a heart any longer. So I'm sorry, I can't help you. If you want the mercy from my heart, my kind heart, you have to approach the devotees, because they have my heart. And that way you can get my mercy. Yes, so what Lord Chaitanya said to be, what he wants is to be engaged in devotional service life after life. And don't worry about money, followers, and all these materially enjoyable things. What Narottam Das Thakur says, birth after birth. Let me just stay with the devotees and serve their lotus feet. If we're talking about how we can stay engaged in Krishna consciousness in devotional service for a lifetime, for this lifetime, then we can understand from these statements of Lord Chaitanya and Narottam Das Thakur that if we really become fully engaged in devotional service and deeply absorbed in our loving relationships with the other devotees, then not only can we be happy in Krishna consciousness for this life, but we can be happy in Krishna consciousness life after life. In other words, eternally. It's not just a matter of 40 years in my case, or 50 years in someone else's case, perhaps, or 60 years, a lifetime, but eternally. Eternally. And tomorrow we are starting a seminar on the Ishopanishad in Phoenix, New Jagannath Puri. And one of the first verses there is the Ishavasyam idam sarvam. That verse, everything's owned and controlled by the Lord, and one should recognize that and not take more than one's quota and use whatever is your quota in the service of the Lord. So, very interesting point. One of the verses immediately after that says, if one lives in this way, one can go on living for hundreds of lifetimes in Krishna consciousness and be very happy in Krishna consciousness, even within this world. So one thing we learn if we study the writings and what the great devotees have said, one thing we find out is that They're not anxious to go back to Godhead, to get out of this material world and just escape. Oh, escape the material world. My gosh, it's too much. Let's get out. It's not really a big concern. It's not a big concern. But they're ready. They're ready to take birth again, if that's what the Lord wants, in Krishna consciousness, in the company of devotees, or even the gopis. You know that story? Krishna has a headache. Krishna got a super headache. Whatever Krishna does is super. Just, way beyond us. So when he gets a headache way beyond us. A God-sized headache. So Krishna had a headache, and Narada Muni volunteered, can I help you? Shall I go to the Checkers Center to Clicks and buy you some Disprin or Panado? And Krishna said, no, that won't help. You've got to get me some dust from the lotus feet of some devotees. So Narada went and asked different devotees for dust from their feet because Krishna wanted it to cure his headache, but they were refusing. Dust from our lowly, dirty feet to be put on the head, the glorious head of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipable by the three worlds. It's out of the question. And we'd go to hell if we were so presumptuous. It would be too much. So no, we're not going to give you some dust from our feet. So Narada went back empty-handed, and Krishna was now really suffering from a headache. And Narada said, look, I'm just so sorry. Maybe I should go back to Clicks and get you some, some Panado, double-strength Disprin. And Krishna then said, did you go to Vrindavan? Did you ask the devotees, the gopis? Did you ask the gopis? And Narada had not done that, so then off he went. And he approached the gopis and explained. And they said, you want dust? It'll help Krishna. Take as much as you want. And they just grabbed their feet and they were just taking dust from wherever they could get it and piling up the dust. And Narada thought, they're sort of like innocent village girls. Maybe they don't understand the implications of all this according to Shastra, the injunctions, and what is offense and what isn't. Maybe they don't understand. So Narada thought, maybe I'll explain to them. He said, you know that what you're doing could be considered to be an offense, dust from your feet on the head of God. And the gopis said, yeah, sure, we know that. We know that. But we don't mind. Narada said, but you may go to hell, it's an offense. And the gopis said, we don't mind, we're ready to go to hell. If it helps Krishna, we're ready to go to hell. No problem. And this is pure devotional service, of course. This is the most exalted state of pure devotional service. And if one comes to that level, or as one progresses in that direction, then more and more one gets realization like that all that matters, nothing else matters, other than to remain in devotional service in the company of devotees. Yeah. So therefore, we place great importance on the association of devotees and trying to follow the process of devotional service in the company of devotees. Of course, another thing is we have to chant the holy names. Of course, it's one part of devotional service and even the most important part. So that's one thing we have to do. And you know what Lord Chaitanya said in the 3rd verse of the ISKCON? Don't you? Don't you? Don't you? No. The 3rd verse. What's the 3rd verse? Rasaraj Prabhu. Okay, thank you. Trinadapi sunichena taro eva sahishnana amanina manadena kirtaniya sadhari. One should chant the holy names of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. And indeed, only in that state of mind will one be able to chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Otherwise, one's chanting will inevitably be interrupted, and even greatly interrupted. So we were today, last night and today, having a Japa workshop in Pietermaritzburg. It was very nice. It was very nice. And one of the things we did today, we read a couple of sentences from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on that verse, the 3rd verse of ISKCON. It's very interesting. The particular part that we read was, he is talking about the line, the particular statement, one should chant the holy names of the Lord, one should think oneself lower than the straw in the street. This is encouraged by Lord Chaitanya. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur discusses this. It's very interesting. He says, the straw in the street, although of course it's inanimate, it's just matter, the life has left it long before, and now it's just some piece of straw lying on the ground, and people walk on it, and the straw never protests. What do you think you're doing walking on me? Go walk on someone else. The straw never says that, it just lies there and takes it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur presents it in a little unusual way, but very nice way, that the straw has no pretensions. He, in one sense, you could say, he knows he's just a straw. He knows he's just a straw. And therefore he just lies there, and people just walk on him, and he's just fully accepting of that. No pretensions of, thinking that it's not fair and they shouldn't do this to me. He has no false ego. Whereas we have so much false ego, isn't it? I am an important person. I have a university degree. Look at me. And I have good job, and I'm just cool. I am Mr. Cool. Sorry, sir, you are not Mr. Cool. You're a spirit soul. And you are in this heavy illusion, a dream world, hallucinating that you're someone important, but actually you're 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair, and you're completely bewildered. You're just lost in a dream, in a nightmare. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in these terms that actually our position is worse than that of the straw, because we have all these crazy pretensions, even though we're totally confused and bewildered, but we think we're just very nice and we're doing well, but we are not. But the straw, he knows his position and he has no pretensions. So in that sense, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, we are lower than the straw in the street, because the straw is honest and self-situated. So we should really try to chant. We have to engage in the process of devotional service. And it begins with chanting. So we mentioned a few minutes ago how we were doing this workshop in Pietermaritzburg. It really was nice. Now, the good news is there is a major program, similar program, about to happen here in the Radharaghunath Temple. The Bhaktivedanta College of Education and Culture is presenting, starting on Thursday coming, the 10th, at 10 a.m. and finishing on Sunday, a week today, at 4 in the afternoon. The Bhaktivedanta College of Education and Culture is presenting the Nam Amrita program, level 1. A really wonderful program of just going deep into the chanting of the holy names, going deep into the understandings, and going deep into actually doing it, going deep into actually chanting. So it starts then Thursday 10 a.m. till Sunday 4 p.m. In other words, it's a full-time program. It's not just the evenings. It's a full-time program. Please participate. It will involve PowerPoint slide discussion sessions from Prabhupada's books, natural inspirations for improved sadhana, interdependent sadhu sangha, practical exercises for internal spiritual commitments, a 64-round japa day. You know, you may be sitting there thinking, 64 rounds, I can't, I struggle to do 16. Some of us may struggle to do 8. Anyway, you can do 64 rounds. You don't believe it? Come and try and find out you can. And Mangalarti every day, and Kirtan, and sumptuous prasadam. Just think, if the Yuga Dharma was not to chant the holy names, but was to eat prasadam, wouldn't life be different? And our waistlines would be different. So there are limited seats. Please register today by contacting Prem Vikash Prabhu, who I think is here. Oh, there he is. Stand up. Prem Vikash. See, look, there he is. You can register with him today. Get in there because there are limited seats. Facilitators, listen to this. Just listen to this. Are you ready? Fasten your seatbelts. The facilitators are none other than His Holiness Bhakti Brihad Bhagavat Maharaj. And His Grace Nrsingananda Prabhu. So that's great. So, yes, Lord Chaitanya, when he was instructing Sanatana Goswami in the main devotional activities, there are 64, he came to the last 5 and he told Sanatana, these last 5 are special. They're special. They stand out from the others. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Maturavas Srimurtir Shradaya Sevan. We should associate with the devotees, chant the holy names, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, live in a sacred place, or make the place where we live sacred, and worship the deity with great awe or with great faith and reverence. So these are some thoughts on, these are my thoughts or realizations about how to spend a lifetime in Krishna consciousness and how to be in Krishna consciousness eternally. I hope you apply these ideas, and please attend this Nama Rita program. It will be very good for you. And Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank you, Maharaj. His Holiness